Connecting to audio, have connected to audio, and so I'm going to start my welcome. I am Vander Geck. I'm Northeast SARE's communication specialist. We're so excited to have you here for our third installment in our Farmer Grant Q&A series. We've got Northeast SARE staff with us, and I'm going to be dropping a welcome poll into the meeting here while we do some quick staff introductions. Then we're going to move into some coverage of just some basic elements of the Farmer Grant program with our grant administrator, Candice Huber. And then we're going to move into questions, and people can drop questions in the chat at any point. You feel free to throw up a hand. We'll make sure that we try to find a good balance and make sure people get processed at the order that they go up there. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat here too. We have live captioning thanks to UVM CART. University of Michigan is our host institution. And yeah, from there, we're just going to take it away. Candice or Emma?
Hi, everyone. I'm Candice Huber, and I manage the Farmer Grant Program as well as the Partnership Grant Program. And I'll be sharing information with you today and hopefully answering all your questions.
Hey folks, my name's Emma. I'm the Grant Program Specialist at Northeast SARE. I'm here today in a note-taking capacity, so I'll be writing down all of the questions and answers that come out of today's session, and then they'll get posted online along with the recording of today's session so folks can follow up and review the questions.
Excellent. So, Vander, if there's no further housekeeping, I can start with the pre-presentation to the Q&A. So welcome everyone to our lunchtime question and answer session. Again, I'm Candice Huber, and I manage the Farmer and Partnership Grants for Northeast SARE, and I'm coming to you from Whiting, Vermont, the ancestral and unceded lands of the Western Abenaki peoples. As you all know, we are now accepting proposals for the Farmer Grant Program until November 12th. And I'm going to explain the basics of the Farmer Grant Program and then open it up for questions. And then if there are no specific questions, I've got a lot I can share and talk about. And you can type your questions into the chat or raise your hand or just jump in if we're not noticing you. Vander and I will both, and Emma will all keep an eye out on the chat. But sometimes the questions come so it's easy to miss something. So please jump right in if we're not getting to you. SARE stands for Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education, and is a federally funded program through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture. There are 4 regions, and we're the Northeast region, serving these 12 states and the District of Columbia. The Farmer Grant Program is one of 6 competitive grant programs that we have. So the first criteria is that you need to be working in this Northeast region. I just want to mention here that we have another program called the Partnership Grant Program. It's very similar, but the applicant is not the farmer. It's someone who works with farmers. So if you're listening and you're not a farmer, but you want to work with one, then maybe the Partnership Grant Program would be the one for you. And the deadline for that program is next April. And you can find out more about that on our website. One other thing I want to just mention about questions, if you have any questions, if you have a question about something specific about your project or your project idea, but you're not ready to share it publicly yet, you can feel free to contact me offline outside of this Q&A session, and I'll be providing all of my information for you to do that. I just wanted to let you know this because this is also being recorded, this session, so just so that you're aware of that. So Farmer Grant basics. Farmer grants are for commercial producers who have an innovative idea that they want to test. The projects should seek new knowledge that other farmers can use and address questions that improve the sustainability of farms. A technical advisor must be involved, and the maximum amount of funds you can request is $30,000. You'll need to put together a detailed, realistic budget, and it's important to note that the funds are paid on a reimbursement basis. So you or your farm need to be able to manage the expenses. Projects typically run from 1 to 3 years. Applicants may only submit one proposal per year per program. But if you are a current awardee, you are eligible to apply again. The only restriction is that you need to be up to date on your reporting. The proposal deadline is November 12th, 2024 at 5 p.m. And the proposals are submitted online. So that's a hard deadline because it all goes through the system, and the system cuts off the submissions at 5 p.m. on the dot. So we recommend getting everything in early and not waiting till the last minute. Detailed instructions for applying can be found in our call for proposals at northeastsare.org/farmergrant. The main goal of the program is to help other farmers in the region. So for your proposal to be competitive, you want to demonstrate that your project will benefit sustainable agriculture. And you can use our outcome statement to address that. And that is, Northeast agricultural communities honor the holistic connection among land, water, air, and all living beings. Agriculture in the Northeast is accessible, sustainable, and just, addressing historic and current inequities so all farmers and farm employees can steward resources to ensure sustainability, resilience, economic viability, and a high quality of life. Now, there's two things that we found in these Q&As that we get a lot of questions about. One is eligibility, and the other is technical advisors. So I'm just going to go ahead and just quickly go over those two things in hopes that it might answer some of your questions. The first is eligibility. So in order to be eligible, you not only need to be in the Northeast region, but you need to qualify as a farm owner or an employee of a farm. If you are a farm employee, there is a form you'll need to submit that shows that the farm owner, whether it's an individual or an institution like a nonprofit organization, approves the project to be done on their farm and will be the fiscally responsible person. So the farm must have the financial capacity to manage the grant. As I said before, they're provided on a reimbursement basis. So the farm needs to pay the expenses up front, and then you submit an invoice to SARE, and it can take up to 30 days to get payment. We go by the definition of a farm, and so we accept all types and scales of farms. You could be farming on a large scale, on a small scale, with organic or conventional practices, urban or rural, full or part-time. But the farm you own or work on must be a commercial operation with an established income of at least $1,000 per year. And we use this USDA definition of a farm: any place from which $1,000 or more of agricultural products were produced and sold, or normally would have been sold during the census year. Now, that normally would have been sold phrase is important to note here, because the USDA does recognize that some farms experience low sales in a particular year due to bad weather, disease, changes in their operation, or many other factors. So it's just that you would typically produce $1,000 or more of agricultural products in the census year. Our website does have a document that explains this further and provides examples of what qualifies and what does not, and that's on our website, called Definition of a Farm. We also encourage applications from historically underfunded communities. So you do not need to show a profit. We do not require evidence of information about your farm's tax status. But so when you sign off on the submission, you're signing off that you meet the definition of a farm, or that you meet the eligibility requirements. If you have any questions at all about whether you are eligible, please about anything, just contact me and we can talk about your particular situation, and figure that out. The next thing I want to just go over quickly is the technical advisor piece. A technical advisor is required for all farmer grant proposals, and we recommend that you enlist them, your technical advisor, early. Identify and get them on board as early as possible, because they should be involved right from the start of the project. They will need to provide a signed letter of commitment outlining their qualifications and what exactly they're going to be doing in the project. The role of the advisor is to provide you, as the grant applicant, support, such as helping you design your project, reviewing your proposal, assisting with outreach or troubleshooting issues that come up during your project, or helping with aspects of the research methodology and analysis, such as maybe statistics. The technical advisor does not write the proposal or does not conduct the project themselves. It's the farmer is the applicant and the farmer is the project leader. Technical advisors can be an extension educator, university researcher, private consultant, veterinarian, maybe NRCS or other government staff, or for a nonprofit or for-profit, as an ag service provider, or any other technical expert, including another farmer. So really anybody who has experience and knowledge in your topic area. Now, our call for proposals does say that the technical advisor should not be a close friend or member of your family. That's a should, so it's not absolutely, it wouldn't make you ineligible, but reviewers like to see you expanding your circles. Part of this is to create lasting relationships and learning from the rest of the community, agricultural community, at the same time, and being able to share with the rest of the agricultural community. So they like that outside perspective and that branching out. So at this point, I'm going to take questions. Let's see, I will first stop sharing so we can all see each other. Okay, so let's see, the first message I see is if your technical advisor is a university employee and you're going to be paying the university, you will need to include them as a subawardee. So in that case, they'll need to provide of their own budget and their scope of work. And so you'll end up having two budgets that will total the amount of the award, which is capped at $30,000. And they will do if it's a university, typically they do their budgets and they do have an indirect rate. So they'll create the budget using an indirect rate in there.
Just a quick housekeeping, Candice, for folks, if you're submitting a question via the chat, if you can submit it to the everyone chat, it'll help both us for tracking it and for helping. So if somebody else has already asked the question, you can see it. Thanks.
Thank you, Vander. Like there were some connectivity issues. Can I have more than one technical advisor? Yes, you can have more than one technical advisor, technically, but we do need you to identify one as the person who will be your official technical advisor. If you want more than that, you can list them as collaborators. And reviewers love to see that. So say, for example, you have a project where you're going to be growing corn, but you also have an aspect to the project where you're going to be using GIS or modeling to identify something about the corn. If your technical advisor is an expert in growing corn, you may want to have another collaborator who has expertise in GIS or modeling. So that's a situation where reviewers will love to see that you've got the support that you need to complete the project. And if that requires more than one technical advisor, then definitely do that. Sometimes if we have trouble reaching you or there's issues about the grant, usually it's a communication issue. We might contact the technical advisor to ask them if they've heard from you or know anything about the project status or something like that. So having one technical advisor listed is good or is important, but definitely you can have more than one. And yes, more than one can get dollars for their effort. We encourage that you pay people working on the grant, including yourself and any of your farm employees or any farmers that you're maybe collaborating with. We want to make sure farmers especially are getting paid for their time, because farmers notoriously will just work and not ask for compensation. So we want to make sure everybody's getting a paid fair wage for their time and effort on the project. And technical advisors can be paid on the project. All expenses need to be incurred after the award start date, which will be March 1st. And then they have to be finished by the end of the contract end date, when that depends on your project that we negotiate after the award. But I did want to say that the technical advisor will not be able to get paid for work that they do prior to the award. So for instance, if they're looking over your proposal, or if they're meeting with you to talk about the design of your project, unfortunately, we cannot pay for that. But the any work that they do after the start of the award, we can certainly pay for. I don't know if I actually think I forgot to mention, there is a guide for technical advisors on our website. I don't know, I may have mentioned it, but may not have. And that is really helpful to share that with your technical advisor when you're approaching them. So just so that they can get a sense about our program and what it is that they will be needing to contribute to, and what their role would be as a technical advisor. I see that there's a question about my email address. northeast-fr@sare.org is a kind of a general email address for the program. So if I'm unavailable for some reason, other people can access that. But you can certainly email me directly at candice.huber@uvm.edu, and I will be responding to both of those. So either of those emails will work. I don't plan on going anywhere between now and the deadline, so that would be good. Yeah, Vander just posted that guide. And yeah, so any other questions? Does anybody have any comments or would like to? I'll stick my email address in the chat, but it's candice.huber@uvm.edu. And that's Candice with an I. And thanks, Emma. And yeah, either of those. Let's see. So Jennifer would like more information about the university charges. So there's something called indirect costs. So you have, when you create a budget, you have direct costs, which are all your costs to do the project: labor, materials, supplies, travel, funds, consultants, services, all those kinds of things. And then you have indirect costs, which some organizations have a federally negotiated indirect cost. So they work with the government's OMB, Office of Money and whatever it is, budgets. And they get a federally negotiated rate. Our rate is 10%. So you have to have that federally negotiated rate in order to be able to claim the 10% indirect. We also provide a de minimis. So if you don't have a federally negotiated rate, you can ask for the de minimis. Most people most individuals don't do the indirect rate. They just charge everything right into the budget. Now, universities typically do all have a federally negotiated rate. So if you have a subaward with a university, they'll create a budget which has all the expenses that the person who's working for them will expend, but they'll also tack on that indirect rate so that they can get paid for their administration of all that. Yeah, at Cornell, it's called overhead. Some people call it F&A, which is facilities and administration. Yeah, there's a bunch of names for it, but yes, overhead is a really good descriptive one. I see, does a farmer need a SAM number to apply? SAM is a government number. I forget exactly what that stands for. But you need to apply for, if you wanted to, typically, you need to be an organization in order to get a SAM's number. You have to start with a DUNS number, and then you get registered in SAM, and it's a big process. And there's even more to it that I don't even know about anymore because it's always changing. So but farmers do not need that. So don't even worry about that. If you're a nonprofit organization, you will need to get that. So if you can get that process started ahead of time, that's a good idea. There's no guarantee. This is a competitive grant program, so there's no guarantee that your project will be awarded. But if it is, and you've already got that SIM number, it'll help the contracting go a lot faster. Yes, Nancy says at Cornell, overhead can be negotiated sometimes. For us, it is it's 10%. 10% or 10% of modified total direct costs, which modified total direct costs removes things like participant costs and the sub award. So that removes some things, but usually the grants office knows what they need to be asking for. Is there a list of this type of stuff available for universities without grant writing departments? I'm not sure if you're referring to the federally negotiated rate, but that would be something that the university would pursue. We don't get involved in that stuff. Not sure what else it might be. Yes, system for award management. Sam, thanks, Ben. Jennifer, or please share more info about the technical advisors. Yes, so again, there is on our website a guide for technical advisors. And I can pull that up, share it. And this guide is again really helpful to share with anybody you're approaching who you might want to ask about being your technical advisor. This is just a tip sheet and it explains why you should have a technical advisor. And that's because we recognize that farmers possess a huge amount of broad expertise, but sometimes there are certain technical aspects where an advisor can really strengthen the proposal, support the research methods, and help with the outreach and reaching more people, which is one of the reasons why we would prefer it not be a family member or a friend or person right immediately in the organization in their department that you're working in. It also creates networking and relationships that could result in further research in that area or more money from other organizations to support it. And this guide talks about who can be a technical advisor, which I went over, what they do, which I went over. They'll need to learn about SARE and the program a bit, but they also help with the proposal, maybe background literature. That's something I hadn't mentioned. They can help you find background literature on your topic. They can help you review the proposal. They can provide expertise. They do not write the grant or conduct the project. And it just provides a lot of benefits to the farmer, but also the technical advisor, as we talked about, can get paid from the budget for the grant. And it does also help them with their professional development as well to be involved in research projects with farmers. Oh, and what kind of time commitment is involved? It really varies per project. And the farmer is the one who should really do the most of the work, but the technical advisor role can really like be from just troubleshooting to actually like performing maybe statistical analysis or setting up some outreach events with you. So the time commitment can really vary, but it's important to be clear with the technical advisor what their role will be in the project, and so that they, whatever that time commitment is, they are clear on it, and they will be able to be there when you need them. Write a little commitment. You'll need to describe in the proposal what they're going to be doing, but they'll have to write a letter of commitment, which will also describe their qualifications and what they see their role to be in the project. So we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with all that. Yeah, and that's the overview of the technical advisor.
Can you
piece.
hear me?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I think I mistyped that. There was a program, we had someone come from SARE to the 1890 colleges talking about a technical advisor to assist farmers and also researchers, because we have a lot of individuals that have never written grants. And of course, we have a university that doesn't even have a grant writing department, as some of these other locations do. So I think it was really contact, I believe it was Lyons was the individual. So can you post some information about that for some of my farmers that I have on the call, if that's possible?
Yeah, I don't, it's not possible to post any information yet. I'm seeing Vander shake his head. I'll let him chime in on this. I'll let them chime in on this, but that program is being currently launched, so it's brand new, and it's also going to be specifically for a grant program that is also going to be launched soon. So it won't be available for all. It won't be available for this farmer grant program. So yeah, that's called our technical assistance program. And Vander, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that timeline, but it's really all pretty, it's just all in the works.
Yeah, next few weeks, you should be seeing both of those things launching. It's just a lot of logistics on getting two things to launch simultaneously here. But yeah, we're very excited for it. And yeah, there's obviously it's totally understandable when we've got technical advisors and technical assistants, and then our review teams are called a technical committee. There's a lot of technical things that are happening. And so, yeah, I think you've really covered all of it there though, Candice.
Okay, so shall I guess, so for the farmers that attended that talk that SARE had last week, we will just go ahead and try to apply for this with what we have, is what you're saying. And then there's another something that's coming forward. Okay, I don't think that was made quite clear for us. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, yes. So while we don't have, for the farmer grants, there is not the same technical assistance program available at the moment. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any needs. And we also have, in each state, there is a state program coordinator who could be available to help. And you can find those on our website per state. But let me know if there's something specific you need, and I can see what I can do to help there. I'm limited in that, you know, as the program manager, I have, you know, conflict of interest if I go into certain areas that, you know, I can't read your proposal or that sort of thing. Which we're hoping the technical assistance program will be able to do more of that sort of stuff. But I certainly can and hopefully answer some questions and maybe send you in a direction that could be helpful. Any other questions? If not, I could talk about the budget. Sometimes that is I could talk about topics and budget. So I'll start with topics and how to just even get started with all of this. Let me share my screen again. Some of these slides may be a little out of order because these are just my extra slides. All right. So first, as we said, the first thing you want to do is reach out to somebody and line them up to be your technical advisor. You want to read the call for proposals, have the technical advisor also read the call for proposals. It gives all the information about the program. It explains all the questions that we're asking. There's an appendix that tells you how to use the online system. It's all in there, and but it's a lot. So totally, if you have any questions, let me know on that. And then you want to identify your objectives and an experimental design. And then you want to identify all the costs involved so you can create your budget. And we do have a publication called How to Conduct Research on Your Farm or Ranch on our website, which can be very helpful if you need some guidance on how to just even get going or how to proceed. So as far as topics go, grant proposals need to address at least one of the themes of sustainable agriculture. And that's environmental, about productivity, conservation and natural resources, farm employment, and improving quality of life for farmers, their employees, and the whole farming community, honestly. But the ultimate goal of the project is that the results will benefit commercial farmers. So we cover a wide range of topics, farms, products, methods, and some examples from the past are aquaculture, bees, business management, any kind of crop production or livestock production. We also fund projects in education. You can provide develop a manual or a curriculum and offer classes to people on certain topics, and then you would want to evaluate the impact of those classes or that curriculum. There is anything having to do with natural resources, of course, nutrient management, which is like composting, fertilizing, cover crops, all that stuff, pest management, livestock and crops, prototypes. I'll talk about that again in a second. And season extension is a big one also. There's a lot of climate health projects, resiliency, those sort of projects. I did just want to touch quickly on product development versus product testing. Product development is building a new tool and then testing it for effectiveness and improvements. So it can be anything from a small tool to a large piece of equipment. But know that if you're using SARE funds to develop a product, those plans and material lists are going to be part of your final report, so they'll be available to the public. Now, product testing is to see if a treatment or process works or can be applied in a new way. So if it's something that's already developed, but you're just looking to see if it's going to work in your area or on a different crop or in some different way, you will not need to share the product design, just the results of the research. So just wanted to clarify that because some people worry about patents and that sort of thing. So just know that if you use whatever you use SARE funds for will be in the public domain. Now, next thing I'm going to talk about, and if there's any questions that I'm missing, let me know. But well, actually, I guess I'll ask first. Are there any questions about topics?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just shared is pretty helpful. I guess our project is kind of hitting multiple of those areas, so we just have to be able to articulate that like in the execution of the proposal, not so much the title.
Correct.
Okay, because our title is kind of guiding us and directing us in order to kind of tie it all together. So that's what our difficulty has been, is really coming up with a cohesive, like, I guess, hypothesis of what we're doing.
Yeah, you will have to provide a project summary, which is like kind of like an abstract. And in there, you should just can make it clear about the project, and then also in your objectives, we want to make sure those are very clear.
Okay, thank you.
And before I move on to the budget more, I did see I was awarded a SARE grant for 2024 partnership, and am I still eligible to serve as a technical advisor for a 2025 farmer grant? And yes, you can, the restriction is you can only apply for one project per program per year. So you can only put in one farmer grant application, but if you had a farmer grant application from 2024 or partnership or research or education grant from 2024, you can still apply for a farmer grant. If you were looking to be the technical advisor for a farmer grant, there are no restrictions. You can be a technical advisor on more than one farmer grant per year, but you're not the applicant, so that's a different thing. But yes, you can serve as a technical advisor on a 2025 farm. Jennifer asks, so proof of concepts. Proof of concepts are eligible. There's you want to be sure, so you want to make your case for why it's important and how it can impact farmers. In order for it to be competitive, you really want to make sure that reviewers could see the value of the proof of concept in relation to how it could impact farmers. So yes, proof of concepts are allowed. Even outreach, like sometimes proof of concept doesn't get you to a point where you're gonna want to like share some specific recommendations or something, but you can as far as outreach goes, that's an opportunity to raise awareness about your topic. You can share what you are doing, and where you're eventually want to head with the concept. So it's important to still follow through with the outreach and the impact on farmers aspects of the proposal, but proof of concepts are eligible.
So proof of concept is like if we have, in our example, we have kind of a multi-site location type of thing we want to test and see if it's viable. We don't have to we can have the primary or the incubator or the model site in this case, right? Like the proof of concept, even if we haven't scaled it to a bunch of other people and places yet. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, it sounds like you're saying that you already would have the model, and then you want to apply that to larger scales or different scales or whatever, and to see how it will work in applied research. If you wanted to get funding to create that model, like if you hadn't done a model yet and you wanted to get the funding to create the model before you spend all this money and effort to do it on the other scale, that we would still, that is still eligible.
Okay.
Does that
Perfect.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the budget. Close out the chat. All right. So it's really important to develop a realistic budget. You'll want to determine what you'll need to do the work proposed. So from soup to nuts, you want to make sure you think of everything, because there's nothing worse than getting into the middle of a project and realizing, oh, I forgot to ask for funding for this or that. And then that's one thing that reviewers look for, that you are thinking it through and that the budget you're requesting will allow you to do the work proposed. So you'll provide your best estimate for each of the expenses you expect to encounter. There's an Excel template that we provide that you will use, and you right down to the detail, you'll say, you know, farm employee, $25 an hour, 30 hours over the course of And then there'll be a formula that will calculate that amount. Same thing as like, even if it's like supplies for collecting soil samples, you'll want to have an amount for that, a specific amount for that, and quantity, and the budget template will calculate the total for that. And the reason for that is that the USDA and the University of Vermont just want to see how you came up with those amounts. When it comes time to actually spend the money, you may find that those soil sample supplies went up a lot. And maybe you'll need more money for them, but maybe you won't need quite as many labor hours for somebody, or that's just an example. So we can move things around. There is some wiggle room, but for the budget with the proposal, we just want to see how you're arriving at the numbers you're getting at, and that you're not just pulling them out of a hat. All the expenses must be incurred during the contract period. So we wouldn't pay for anything before March 1st, and then we wouldn't pay for anything after your contract end date. So if you get to within a couple months before your end of your contract and you realize, oh, I need another 6 months to be able to do this, that, and the other thing, we can negotiate that. We have a maximum of 3.5 years, but we can negotiate, to extend your end date if needed. You just contact me, we work it out. We just want you to be successful with your project. And on that note, success doesn't mean that everything works out like it should, or that, you get positive results. Success just means that you're able to complete the project and learn from it. So sometimes when challenges come up, or when things don't work as you were hoping, that's really valuable information for other farmers and for other researchers. So all that's we consider a success. And then finally, again, the cap is $30,000, and that's for the total award of the grant. As I mentioned, on the website, there is a template for you to use. It's called the Budget Detail Justification and Narrative. And this is kind of a squished up version, but it just gives you a little demonstration. You have the project leader's name, and then you describe what they're going to do. And you're looking at hours as your unit, and 250 hours, $50 per hour. And then here's the total for that. So you do that for each item, even materials and supplies, or travel, or services. And then this column in the spreadsheet adds everything up. There's several different budget categories: personnel, materials and supplies, publications and printing, travel, other direct costs, which covers consultants, services, equipment, things like that. And then subawards, as we talked about before, where you may be hiring out to an organization that will need to provide their own budget, and you'll need to provide that. And they'll also need a grant commitment form, but that's all that detail is in the call for proposals. So first couple things, let's go over what SARE does and does not fund. The type expenses that are covered are personnel time. We talked about that for you and one of your employees, or anybody who's collaborating with you. Materials and supplies like flagging, collection vials, rope, seeds, whatever you need in that department. Travel, sometimes you have to travel maybe as part of the study, or to do the outreach. Maybe you want to go to a meeting or a conference where you're going to present your results. Printing and publications, that would cover like flyers or fact sheets, or maybe you want to print a guide with your study results, or maybe you even want to submit a journal article. Other direct costs, as I said, equipment rental, testing services, consultants. The main thing is that all the expenses that you request funding for are specific to the project and are not something that would be in your normal day-to-day operation. So things we don't cover are structures and major renovations, so no capital expenses. Purchase of farm equipment that is normal for your operation, like if you needed a tractor bucket, we wouldn't, most likely you would need that for your normal operation anyway, so we wouldn't cover that. Motorized vehicles, we don't cover. Cell phones and cell phone charges, we don't cover. So food we can cover if it's only if it's necessary for the continuity of the meeting. So we wouldn't just cover food for farmers that you want to have get together. It would need to be having a specific meeting, and there's no other option for them to get food unless you provided it. Promotional giveaways, we don't pay for any swag of that type. As I said, any operating expenses that are normally present for you, we wouldn't cover. And it needs to be within the grant contract period. Equipment, we prefer that you, let's see if I have a slide about that. No. Equipment, we prefer that you rent if you can, but if you need to purchase equipment, you need to, again, make your case that it is needed specifically for the project. If it will need to be, if it is something that could be used after the project by you or by another farmer, it will need to be prorated, which means if you have a 2-year project, typically we have typically for agricultural items, their useful life is 5 years. So if you have a 2-year project, we would pay for 40% of the price of that equipment. And that's all also explained in the call for proposals, and there's a good example in there. Yeah, that sometimes is what people have a lot of questions about. Let's see what we have in the chat. Should the whole budget be included, even costs that will not be covered by the grant? Excellent question. We do not want to see in the budget template costs that are not covered, that would not be covered by the grant. However, if you have another source of funding that will be contributing or parts to the grant, or maybe it's just even from your farm, you'll like maybe having a tractor with a bucket is a really important part of the proposal, but what you would want to do is there's a section called experience and resources capacity. In there you can describe, for this project, we'll be using X, Y, and Z from my farm or from this other organization, which is, so reviewers won't look at the budget and go, well, how are they going to cover this or that? So they want to know, but you don't need to put it in the budget itself. Will budget cover equipment that is needed specifically for this project and no other project? Yes. If it's needed, again, if it's needed specifically for the project, and you wouldn't normally have it for any other part of your operation, SARE, you can include it in your budget with the caveat that if it's something that can be used after the project by you or another farmer so that you could sell it to somebody, we would only pay that prorated rate. Yes, yep, thanks, Emma. We will be posting the recording. Our points, sorry, Mike, okay. Are points awarded for unkind such as what you're describing? Are you maybe in kind? Yeah. Not necessarily points. No, points are not awarded for that. But again, reviewers will want to know, and they do like to see collaboration. Collaboration is always a welcome thing in a proposal because it just brings in more points of view and it gets the word out further. We don't provide, so like in the review criteria and the scoring, there are not points awarded for that, but reviewers do like to see that if it's necessary, but they aren't looking to see if a project has in-kind support from somewhere else. that's not anything they're specifically looking for. But if they see it and it's clearly needed for the project to be successful, then they would definitely appreciate that, and it would help some of the criteria. So let's see, Vander sent out another poll. Any other questions so far? Stop sharing. So we're getting close to the end here. Let me just go over the timeline again. One thing I do want to mention, if you're going to be working with,
Oh, we have a question in the chat there on if a project is going to extend beyond the grant period.
okay, great. Yes, thank you. And also, where is that form located? I missed the link. Not sure which, if you're talking about the budget, maybe the budget template, maybe Vander, you could pop that in again. If the project is going to extend beyond the grant period, if it's something that is, so there are a lot of projects like in agroforestry, or if you're working with any sort of perennial crop, it's hard to do it within 3 years, or maybe like, testing for carbon in the soil. Some things just take a while to produce results. So unfortunately, we do have a limit. So if you have a longer project that you want to do, you'll need to parse it out into smaller projects, like find goals along the way that you want to attain and apply to get to that point. Again, you'll want to make your case of why it's important and how it could continue, but how the results up to that point would be helpful. Now, if your question is what happens if you're working on your project and you realize you have 4 months till your end date, but there's no way it's going to be done in that time, you contact me and we can work together to extend the project for as long as you need, or the end of our capacity, whichever comes first, because we're tied to the primary award from USDA NEPA. I did want to just quickly mention about human subjects research and livestock research. If your research involves gathering data from people or livestock, we'll ask you some questions about what type of data and how you'll work with it and how you'll work with that population, whether it's humans or livestock. We need to make sure that confidentiality and welfare protections are in place as required by USDA NEPA and the University of Vermont for research projects. So there are questions about that in the proposal. There's also a question about the farming community. We're looking to see what farming communities you're working with or you're interested in working with. And we've got a checklist of communities and so you can get a sense of what we're looking for. But really, we just want to know how you engage with other farmers and what type of other farmers, and how you're making sure that you're addressing the needs that are actually out there for your community. Just share one more time. No. There we go. Share. All right, so this is our timeline. So let's see if I do this. Will it go back? Yes. So the proposal deadline again is November 12th at 5 p.m. on the dot. You must submit your application online. If you have any difficulties with any of that, please contact us well in advance so we can help figure out what to do there. The proposals are then reviewed between November and February 2025, and the awards will be announced by email on March 1st, 2025, and then the contracts are issued during the month of March. If you are awarded a grant, you'll need to, I'll work with you to just finalize your budget and get everything ready for contracting. Your other responsibilities will be, you'll need to complete an annual report during the time of your project when it's active. And then at the very end, a month after your contract end date, you need to submit a final report for your project. And then once that is reviewed and approved, we would pay any final invoices. Invoicing can happen throughout the project. We request not more than monthly, I think, but you would get more information about that. But we have an invoice template you can use. You'll be responsible for managing your budget. And if you have need any changes to your project, like extending the end date or changes in the budget, sometimes maybe you need to reallocate funds in the budget as things come up, you would contact me and I'd work with you to make that happen. And I think that's about it. I think we're at our time limit here.
You've got 2 questions in the chat, Candice.
Thank you.
Yep.
What if you want to work with the community at large as opposed to other farmers? Yep, absolutely fine. Just make sure that you explain it all in the proposal when you talk about the communities you're going to work with. But just remember that the goal of the project should ultimately be to help farmers. And when is the completion date? The completion date depends on your project. Some people, it's just a year. Some people, it's 2 years. For the March 2020 projects that start March 1st, 2025, it's November 2028 is the very, very final end date where we can finish up projects. Anything else? Great. Well, I appreciate you all coming today. And again, feel free to contact me if you had questions that didn't get answered today, or if you come up with any questions while you're working on your proposal. And we will be having one more session next week on Wednesday. And I think that's the 30th. So you could always join us then as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.